According to reputable sources, one of the greatest young talents in European football is tempted to come to Tottenham Hotspur this summer. I'll be talking about that more later on in today's episode of Tottenham Transfer Rumours on the Spurred On podcast. But before I get into all of the transfer rumours, I want to start by saying how happy I was last night that Harry Kane scored his goal at the Emirates against Arsenal in the Champions League quarter-final. To be honest, I thought how very Arsenal it was that when they get a difficult Champions League draw against Bayern Munich in the home game, somehow they've managed to wangle it so Bayern Munich aren't allowed to take any away fans. So I worried for Bayern Munich last night. Obviously, they're having a difficult season. Tuchel's leaving in the summer, and I did worry whether maybe Arsenal would blow them away, but Harry Kane played brilliantly. A sneaky elbow in there on Gabriel, a brilliant penalty. The first time he's ever changed his penalty technique that I know about. Let me know in the comments if you think he's ever done it differently. But where he stuttered and watched David Raya go the other way and just placed it in the corner. Beautiful. I loved his celebration. And then also, let's face it, Bayern Munich should have had a penalty. That handball incident was unbelievable and the refs really bottled it there. And that Saka penalty that Arsenal fans are claiming was a penalty in the last kick of the game, absolutely not. He threw his leg out onto the keeper. The keeper couldn't go anywhere. Absolutely right from the referee that time. Anyway, important to talk about those big Champions League moments because next season we're going to be back in it. Spurs with a great result at the weekend and going to Newcastle this Saturday to hopefully get 3 points and really cement that position in fourth in the Premier League. Anyway, let's get on to the transfer rumours. First up, Mohamed Simakan from Leipzig, a very talented young right back or centre back, has played a lot at right back for Leipzig for the French under-21 team, who he's got seven caps for. He's 23 years old, formerly played for Strasbourg, moved to Leipzig for 15 million euros a couple of seasons ago. Now, there's a lot of talk in the press about he's interested in coming to the Premier League, but Leipzig, who, let's face it, are under the Red Bull banner, they're not going to need to sell, and that's why they are talking about him having a 60 million euro release clause. That is a lot of money for a right back who can also play centre back. He's played 27 appearances this season. What I like about him and what is really fitting and frankly is very in keeping with a lot of these rumours that we hear about that Tottenham are interested in, players who are incredibly quick, who are strong, who are athletes. It's clear that Ange wants athletes and people who are going to have the physicality to play in the Premier League. And Simakan definitely has that. He's, like I mentioned, very quick and powerful. When he's playing at right back, he does do you remember when Benoit Asuakoto used to play left back for Spurs? One of the things that I loved about him on the pitch so much was how often he would show as if he was going to go for a channel ball down the line. And then when the player who's coming to press him goes to try and block that, he just goes inside and drifts into the centre of the pitch. Well, Mohamed Simakan at Leipzig does a very similar thing, and I like that about him. He can also cross and finish. I've seen him in lots of good positions from right back, getting into the box, getting to the byline, and getting the ball cut back or to the far post. And also making late runs into the box and able to finish, which would suit Ange Ball as well. How many opportunities are our fullbacks getting to be in the box? We know, obviously, Destiny Udogie scored a few goals. Pedro Porro scored his goal at the weekend. And I think Ange talked about in his post-match press conference how he's basically telling his fullbacks he wants them in there more. So I think Simakan really can fit that inverted fullback role that we play so well. He intercepts the ball really well. He's quite a gangly player, but with lots of strength, despite the fact he seems quite kind of thin. And I really think this is a big possibility if we could get him from the Bundesliga, from Leipzig, for a more realistic fee than 60 million euros. Now, of course, him having a 60 million euro release clause doesn't necessarily mean that that's the money you're going to have to pay. Let's think about it. We got Mickey van der Ven for 40 million euros or something like that, 45 million euros from Wolfsburg. maybe we'd be looking at something similar. However, if we're going to get Simakan, he's not going to be a first choice straight away. He's going to have to really fight for his place. He would be, I think, a backup for Porro and potentially a backup for one of Romero and Dragushin Romero and Van de Ven, alongside Dragushin. So whether Spurs are going to be able to, willing or able to spend as much as kind of 45 million euros on a player like this summer, I'm not so sure. So he's definitely a raw potential talent. I like him a lot, as ever with these young French players. So much ability. But whether Spurs are likely to spend it on him this summer, I don't know. So I'm going to put this as a little 6 out of 10 possibility. Next up in the transfer rumours, a player who has been in the Premier League for a few years and then obviously because of Leicester's relegation dropped down to the Championship and is having a great season for Leicester in the Championship this season. It's Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, 25 years old now, so not as young as maybe a lot of the players that Spurs are being linked with since Johan Lange has come through the door. But he has scored 12 goals and got 14 assists in the Championship this season from 44 appearances. Central midfielder, his contract runs till 2027, so it's not necessarily one of these ones where we're trying to get him on the cheap because his contract's running out. However, I don't know if you've been reading a lot of the stuff that's come out about Leicester's financial fair play issues. It looks likely that if they do come up from the Championship this season, and it looked like that was going to be a shoo-in for most of the season, but they've really dropped off in the last month or so. But if they do come up, it may well be that they have to start with a points deduction from the beginning of the Premier League season. He's rated by Transfer Market at 30 million euros. I wonder whether this, because Dewsbury-Hall is obviously homegrown English player, I wonder whether this is something that Spurs are looking at as a potential other option to the Conor Gallagher transfer. That's gone a little bit quiet in the last few weeks or so. Gallagher, I don't think is playing great. Obviously, Chelsea aren't playing brilliantly. In fact, I'm going to be doing a Pochettino and Chelsea special interview tomorrow. So watch out for that because I like to keep, I mentioned Harry Kane at the top of this episode. I like to keep across what, kind of Tottenham's big name managers and players are still doing since they've left. I'm pretty loyal when it comes like that. And look, I don't want Chelsea to be doing well, but I care about Pochettino, and it seems to be all unravelling there. So I'm going to look into that in more depth in an interview tomorrow. So check that out. But like I said, Conor Gallagher not playing that great at the moment. So I wonder if Spurs are maybe balking at the idea of paying as much as 50 million quid for someone whose form has dropped off. What I like about Dewsbury-Hall, he's brave on the ball, very good diagonal balls, which obviously is a big fit for Spurs with the way Ange likes to play. His central midfielders trying to find our front men. He isn't afraid to beat a man in midfield with a little drop of his shoulder, a little bit of pace. As I mentioned, he's homegrown. He's got a lovely left foot, which will offer something slightly different balance-wise. He is, though, quite small. And let's also face it, Harry Winks has played well for Leicester this season too. And it's one of those things I've talked about a few times. Players like Winks, players like Oliver Skipp, if they get games and if they get to the rhythm of playing many games in a row, I think they are able to show their talent and their ability far more. So I'm just wondering, is Dewsbury-Hall really going to be that much better than Winks was or would have been if he'd played many games? And Oliver Skipp, who's barely even getting in the Spurs squad at the moment? It's hard to say. What I would have to admit to, though, is that it looks like Oliver Skipp's going to be out of the door. He's barely even making the squad at Spurs, the matchday squad at the moment. So that's why I think Tottenham and Bruno Lange are looking at English players, homegrown young English players. So Dewsbury-Hall, I'm going to say, is a 6.5 out of 10 possibility. Finally, on today's episode, the huge European talent that is apparently tempted to come to Tottenham Hotspur. I've talked about him in videos before. He is an unbelievable young player. It's Nico Williams at Atletico Bilbao. Apparently, we are super interested, as are other Premier League clubs, of course, but as we know, Tottenham have the ability, with the profit and sustainability rules, to spend money where others are needing to sell before they can spend the money. So this is why I think this is a possibility, and the fact that some stuff is coming out of Williams' camp saying that he's tempted. He's only 21 years old. Winger can play on both sides. 20 goal contributions in only 30 matches this season. That's 14 assists and 6 goals. He won Bilbao the Copa del Rey, their first trophy in 40 years. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that sound like the kind of player who could come to Spurs and maybe make a big change. We're looking for a player who is an absolute game changer, someone who scares the opposition, someone you can give the ball to and he can beat a man or two and make space for other players. And Nico Williams could be that player. The other thing that will be interesting, Daniel Levy, is despite his undoubted talent, despite the fact that he plays for Spain brilliantly and is one of the most hyped up young players that Spain have had for a long time, he has a 55 million euro release clause at Bilbao. That's like 50 million, 45 million pounds. That is something I think Daniel Levy could get his teeth around. As I said, can play either flank, direct, so quick, but incredibly comfortable in tight spaces as well, which Ange will like. He's a composed finisher on both his left, which isn't his more natural side, and his right. He's unselfish too. When he gets in a position where there's a better player available, he will give the ball, which is very, very exciting. Great crosser of the ball, very strong on the ball as well. Very rarely knocked off it, which is good for the Premier League. One of the things that can happen with these players who come in from abroad is they take time to get used to the Premier League because it's so strong. Everything is a lot more, fouls are not given in the Premier League that are given in La Liga or Ligue 1. So, that's something that could suit Nico Williams as well. I wonder whether this brilliantly skillful young Spanish star might be the transfer that doesn't go away for Spurs. By which I mean, it feels like every summer, or in the lead up to every summer, there's a player that Spurs are linked with time and time again, where it doesn't go away and that player comes to the club. I wonder if that's Nico Williams this season. And if it is, I think the fan base will absolutely love him. I wonder also, could we get him and Werner in? Werner only at 15 million and Werner, therefore, both of them able to cover both flanks and have really strong options, in which case I think Brian Hill would leave and maybe even Manos Solomon would leave. I know he hasn't had much of a chance, but we got him for free. It seemed like an opportunist move, and I wonder if we got a few million quid for him, whether then we would go for Werner and Nico Williams. I don't know, just a thought. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of the possibility of Nico Williams coming to Spurs in the comments. Also, thank you so much for your support and watching. Please do press like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, please do go over to the podcast platform, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give me a follow or a subscribe there and a rating. And if you want to support the channel, only £1 a month, you can become a Patreon member or a Spurred On Pro member on YouTube. All the information in the description box below. Some exciting transfer rumours there and a good time to be a Spurs fan. Come on, you Spurs.